Thanks.
Oh, you can't hide from that light. Thank you very, very much. Now, we have a number of, they're beautifully described, roving mics. So even if you're at the front, could you use them, please, so that we can, so that everybody can hear your question, as well as just Paul. And also, we've discovered a magnificent innovation as part of our conferences, is that instead of having to wait afterwards for the wine, we're bringing it in now. But Paul, last time they missed us out at the podium, so swipe one as it comes past.
Yes.
So do we have, I don't know if we have our mics yet. Do we have our mics? Thank you. Could we have our first question just down here? Abby, if you could shoot round, you look like you're the closest. That's it. Thank you very much. Is it turned on?
First of all, thank you for some excellent insights in your presentation, Paul.
Thank you.
You mentioned shadow IT and,
Yep.
and cloud, and given the advent of software as a service, how do the two come together to get shadow IT under control to enable you to deliver standardization, for example?
Great question. And I think that's something we're all struggling with is, where does software as a service fit in? In terms of the shadow IT departments, what I meant by them was organizations in line departments that, I can't see you, so I'm going to move here. Organizations in line departments that are trying to do your job, our job. And our job is to know about the technology, it's to advise people on the right choices, to understand how it fits together, to do that. And quite often you will find that there's some people in line departments who've been recruited for whatever reasons. Maybe the business isn't very happy with the IT department, who've been taken out of the IT department. And instead of doing the business job, which is being, lovely phrase, intelligent customer, they actually try to second guess the IT department and, no, it's got to be that, not that. So I really think you've got to go after those. Now, sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. But I just think, you've got to call out, that's our job, we do that. You tell us what you want. Don't tell me it's, XYZ software. It's not your job. Your job is to say what the business needed. So I think that's okay. That still holds. I think software as a service is different. And I think we all need policies. So, I think it's going to happen. You need a forward architecture which says, this is where we're going as a business. These are the things that we think we need to build or integrate or put forward. Here are elements where we will be prepared to entertain software as a service. We can use a third party to do it. So the frequently asked questions on BA.com is and was a service. It's painted blue and sort of works, but that works quite well. The core BA.com site is not. You have to be very, very careful about this, because if you put software as a service into the core of your architecture, you may open up access to customer data and things like that. So I think it's really important, instead of having an argument about, the commercial director really must have this bit of functionality on the website, and all we've got to do is open up the permissions and let them in, to have a discussion beforehand. This is mental note to myself, by the way, for the John Lewis board, is to have a discussion beforehand which says, yeah, we don't have, we're not against it, but if you are going to use a service, you must be very careful about what it has access to, where it can go. Is it going to interfere with purchasing data? Is it going to interfere with customer data? How does it affect our exposure in terms of payments and things like that? So you've got principles. You then have to have principles about, is this mission critical? If the commercial director swears a mighty oath that this isn't mission critical and says, yeah, fine, okay, I don't mind if it does go down on Sundays, I don't care, I just want this, fine. Make sure they say it in front of witnesses. But then say, if it is a key component, say, well, you show me no mercy. rightly so, if we go down for more than 5 nines, we have to insist on the same, and then right into the contract. So I think you need a policy to get across it. But you're right, it's a really interesting area, and I think quite hard to get the balance right on.
Thank you very much. Next question, because you're close to a microphone. No, sorry, so the man just here, sorry, thank you.
Hello, my name's Tim Wade from Morgan Sindall. I'm really interested in the social networking side. Lots of companies believe their reputation is at risk by opening up the company to Twitter and Facebook, etc.
Sorry, could you speak up a little?
Sorry, yes, I'm just saying that lots of companies are concerned about opening up Facebook and Twitter and their reputation. They could be tarnished by that. I'd just be interested in just exploring that a bit further, your experience in that area.
Well, I mean, who here has seen United Broke My Guitar? Anybody? It's quite famous these days, isn't it? I mean, this was, for those of you who haven't seen it, is some poor chap, some foolhardy chap, made the mistake of putting his sort of classical guitar into the baggage hold of a domestic United Airlines flight in the States. And, guess what happened? It came out in many, many pieces. So what did he do? As soon as he got hold of it, he then got his mate to do a video, made up a little ditty which went United Broke My Guitar, repeat 50 times. And it went viral on Facebook, on YouTube. You've got to watch it. So it's a bit, I suppose, and it's a great question. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. People are going to make comments about you on social networking. I think people are quite intelligent about it and are quite good at spotting things they do or they don't believe in. If you've got a genuine issue, it's worth responding to it. What we do in John Lewis is every afternoon, we monitor and we keep a view. And clearly if they're one-off issues, those need to be dealt with in terms of appropriate one-off measures. But if you're getting something consistent that's happening, sort of about products, it actually gives you valuable early warning. We also find that the Facebook page, John Lewis Facebook page, is working quite well in terms of new products, and I think people just use it, And I think the really interesting thing is actually how people, will use it in the future. So if you think you're making a decision to buy something, who are you going to ask? Well, they're probably people that you know and trust. So those might be, the 50 of your friends. So you're probably going to pay attention to that. I know, because I don't go to a hotel unless I've checked TripAdvisor. Anybody else use TripAdvisor? See, good bet, that one. I think you just can't afford not to be there, and recognize it is there and you need a presence. How all this will develop, I don't have a great answer to. I think that's one of the, the interesting things is about how this develops. But I absolutely think that anybody who's in a customer-facing space needs a social networking policy.
Thank you very much. And the next question, I'm going to purposefully go to the back.
Great. As I'm at the back, I hope I'm not being too greedy and ask 2 questions, if I may. The first question really is around, a lot of your talk was around alignment with your business, from an IT perspective, aligning the two. And you have an alignment with both your internal customer and your external customer. And I just wondered whether or not the alignment that you're striving for was always the same. And the second question was just feeding onto the last question. And I just wonder whether or not, as a trend, and I'm not asking for a de facto answer on this, I'm just thoughts. Would social media, do you think, replace email as a form of communication in a business environment?
Well, for many generations, it already has replaced email, as I'm sure we all know. Just coming on to the first bit about alignment, I think it's important, and if it came over, is that the technology should drive the change. I don't think that's quite right. I think, my relationship in John Lewis or British Airways is with the multi-channel online commercial people or the distribution people. Yeah, okay, I think it's a really important point that everybody in the data center really understands that they are, the biggest channel for check-in. They're not some kind of abstract thing in a box that has no windows. They're actually customer facing. I think that's really, really important message. But I do think, and this is their no IT projects, only business projects point, that our job is to enable the business, to inspire the businesses to work closely. And the most fun I've had as a CIO IT director is when you get that alignment. So when actually there is enormous business challenge. So way, way back in British Airways, Ryanair and EasyJet, had eaten our breakfast because we were charging stupid prices, to fly places, and it just wasn't. And we ended up flying, air around the place. And actually, we aligned with the business to make a really rather clever IT change, calendar-led selling, which everybody then sort of used. But actually, that was then implemented by the business changing the way it priced things. And then the marketing department covering London, with ads trying to convince people that actually we were competitive and we weren't expensive. So, yeah, if it came across that there was a difference, that was wrong. So I think, it's alignment that matters. It's enablement, it's inspiration, it's delivering what the business needs, and actually, we all know that co-located groups who are trying to deliver something go tons better than ones that are separated. In terms of whether, yeah, absolutely. Email's horrible, isn't it? Ghastly thing. We all do it religiously. And then it comes back. It is very hard to use. It's very two-dimensional. So yes, I think it will. But the other thing I also think is that actually what we have at the moment, and our challenge as IT directors, and is do this cost effectively, is to give people the tools that they want that suit them. So I like social networking. Other people, sort of silly jokes apart, actually find email very effective. And actually, that's fine. Providing you've got the options and everybody knows the rules of the game. So I think you need to find the IT tools that support the culture of your company or your government department or your charity, and things that really work for you. So if people really like Twitter as a means of communicating, and I'm still in touch with loads of my old colleagues from BA, who was sort of pinging things back and forward, that'll take over. So. Sorry, that's a bit of a messy answer, but actually I think the world in this space is a bit messy, and it's all about cultures and all about what you want.
Thank you very much. And can I take a question from the left-hand side of the room, at the back? No, sorry, that's a man just leaning on a chair, actually. This man here, thank you. I'm probably the furthest point away from the microphone. And by the way, whilst we're waiting for that, have you noticed they haven't given me a glass of wine, have they? Can I have a glass of wine? They know me, that's the problem, yes.
Paul, do you think there'll still be a role for the CIO in 10 years? And if so, what will be different from now?
Oh, it's a spinning one, isn't it? Yeah, I do. Because, what is a CIO? It's somebody who uses the technology, whether it's software as a service, whether it's legacy, where it is, and actually, uses it to enable processes. What are systems? Systems are the articulation of business processes. Tedious but true. So there will be business processes. Those will become increasingly automated. As I talked about the one of the C's, it's all going to get much, much, much more interconnected. We will need to be able to understand information and data and predict things. Those of you who do web analytics will know, what an extreme science that is. That makes, sort of revenue management and airlines look very old hat. So, I think absolutely you will need somebody in every company to pull that lot together. Whether they're called an IT director or CIO, I don't know. You know, I rather like being an IT director again. It's rather nice. What will it be? Crikey, you know, 10 years. I haven't got the foggiest. You know, if anyone, you know, you just, you know, to predict that far out. So, you know, one of the things I'm interested in, because we do have a 10-year forward, is, you know, what does shopping look like in 2010? You know, I could, you know, bore you for another hour on some of the possibilities. I don't, it's hard to call. I suspect we'll still have some of the legacy systems that were there 20 years ago there. You know, they are fully written down, they are debugged, and they still work, so that's nice. I think, I'll go for 5 years. I think that bit about everything's going to, even if it isn't, look like an app is going to be there. I do think that, you know, interconnectivity is going to be key. I think the companies that can really, you know, anticipate and use automation and technology will be big winners. Because I think, you know, we can all know, anybody who's in the customer-facing space knows that customer expectations just get higher and higher, and we all expect more. So, you know, the companies that can use technology to really give customers what they want, you know, will lead. Now, what are the new technologies we'll get there? You know, that's much harder. It's going to be fun finding out, though, isn't it?
Thank you very much. And the next question from the man here in the white shirt. Gentleman in the white shirt.
First of all, thanks again. That was quite good, thank you, and insightful. Quick question on the guerrilla development or shadow IT and going into a new role. How do you prevent stifling enthusiasm from the directors who feel like they know IT and can do it better, faster, cheaper than you can?
Great question. And that's certainly what they think, yes. As we all know. Well, give them something of what they want is the easy answer. There is a bit about the stuff for VIPs there, but that's quite superficial. I think, and you know, how long I stay at John Lewis will determine whether this is a successful strategy or not, you'll be able to tell, is you need a portfolio of things. So, you know, we have enormous ambitions, there's no secret about that. You know, we talked about 1 billion online, we're opening new stores, we're going international. That requires some really, really heavy lifting. So, you know, job number one is to work out what that is and explain it to people and make sure nobody thinks that's a walk in the park and it's really easy. Because, you know, sort of, you know, business process transformation is difficult. I've also got some really big projects running. So they said, hi, Paul, welcome. Did you know we're putting in a new website, you know, in a year's time, and we're getting on with it, you know. Oh, good, that's nice. You know, so there's not much riding on that. Oh, and by the way, Paul, we're putting in a new point of sale. And you've got to train 22,000 people. Fantastic. Oh, and the new order management system. So, see, we've got some really big stuff that we're doing. And it's really important, see the comments on projects, and really difficult to do those. And that's, if you like, that's the medium-term stuff. And then there's the other short-term stuff. So I don't know whether this is working, but I'm trying to, you know, look for some quick hits. So, and apologies for the Apple fixation, but I got acquaintance of mine to pop down. I did my induction at Blue Water. John Lewis Blue Water, lovely store. Do visit it. Some fabulous value there, never knowing the undersold, as you know. I sold, rather inexpertly, it has to be mentioned, some kitchenware under supervision with our partners. And my God, we do need a new EPOS system, I can tell you. Kevin's is much more modern than mine. But so we, try try the Apple Store thing, go and talk to people. We've got, John Lewis Online, well, maybe, you can't have everything in the store, but you've got a lot more online. Maybe that works. Try some things like that. Or, try some other experiments. We're looking at processes, because technology is heavy lifting. One of the things we worked at BA was the sort of anti-IT department, which is, new processes without having to do technology. As we all know, every system we've got is probably not fully used or fully functional. And actually, quite a lot of the problems that people have are process. So, we've adopted in our distribution depots lean principles, in terms of how you change things. So, the answer I'm trying is some quick wins, quick hits, which actually show we care, we're innovative, we love technology. We get a kick out of this stuff. It's good. And actually, it doesn't always have to be a bloody great new system. Maybe you can just sort the processes out. Secondly, we've got some really big projects that we need to focus on and deliver those. And then there's the transformational stuff. And, I think it's trying to balance the lot.
Thank you. And yes, because you're at the front, and it's much easier to point to you. Another question, please. Thank you.
You talked about IT departments being outsourced, and you said, it's a very sort of, it's too strategic to think about short-term gains. Do you think an IT director is the best person to persuade a board not to outsource an IT department?
Yeah, absolutely, because you're supposed to know about technology in your company. And if they don't believe you, you've lost the confidence of the board. And a really interesting story on that, which I've started, so I've got to finish it now, haven't I? Which is when I first became IT director, a long while ago in British Airways, there were some propositions with some companies that remain nameless, for outsourcing. So rather than resist, we said, okay, show us what you could do. So they turned up and we looked at what they'd produced, and the then chief executive, Rod Eddington, said, thank you, that's very interesting, but we're not that, interested, because actually we think, we're not perfect. We're a long way from being perfect, but, I've got confidence in Paul and the team that they'll be able to move things forward. And I know that what they offered over the 5-year period was a certain amount of saving, and I know we delivered, I believe, more, including all the online stuff, and we made a greater saving. So presumably the difference was their profit. Now, I was lucky there, so I'm not saying it was, I think it's to do with the culture of your company. I think the other thing to say is it depends where your technology is. And actually, if you, just want to run it in a commodity fashion and not particularly as a differentiator, running everything on SAP or Oracle and getting it done by a third party is probably fine. And if that's what the business strategy of your company at that stage says, that's fine. If you see technology as a differentiator in part of it, not all of it, as I said, absolutely keeping control of your destiny, how it all sits together, is what you need to do. And what you need to try and do is convince your board that actually what you're good at, and you and your colleagues are good at, is really understanding your business, in my case the airline business or the retail business, and how technology intersects with that. Because that's what you do. You're the smart people who understand your business and the technology world better than anybody else, and better than those people who want to outsource a lot. That having been said, I'm sure everybody in this room works with third parties. The thing I was really concerned about was, if you like, the rather old-fashioned notion that the whole lot gets outsourced, which, as I say, might work in some places, but if technology matters, is strategic to you, I think is quite a risky thing to do.
Thank you. And the next question, gentleman right at the back, just behind the man. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Thank you, Lucy.
Hello. I want to change the tone slightly. You've given a lot of advice about what IT should do, but sitting on the board, what would you like your colleagues to change in their behaviours, their attitudes, their values as you go forward in the partnership?
Well, I will answer that historically. So, this does not, to be very clear, refer to any current colleagues. I think to be realistic in terms of requirements, but I think that's, this is all about two-way communications. And I think it's really important that one understands where one's colleagues are coming from in terms of what they need. We're in the middle of not particularly good economic times. It's really tough out there at the moment. If you're the CEO or commercial director of a company, you're under tremendous pressure to deliver. And if you're quoted on the stock exchange or you're owned by investors, you're almost under weekly, quarterly, pressure to deliver numbers. So, the demands on them are tremendous. And I think you need to recognize that. So, in asking people to be realistic in terms of what technology can do, which is, I think, the answer to your question, which is, to be realistic, I think it's important to explain what the realities are, and why things can't be instantaneous and why they're not cost-free. But I think you need to recognize then why people are demanding. And actually, it's a great place to be. If people are demanding, technology and improvement, at least you do know you're on the key agenda. So I think it's understanding, but I think in asking for understanding, you've got to explain what the situation is.
Thank you. And next question, the lady halfway back. Yes, no, you're not a lady. Just on your left, Emma. Oh, sorry, you put your hand up for this gentleman. I understand now. You're trying to confuse me.
I was getting moral support.
Oh, jolly good.
Having you ask questions from the front and the back, nobody from the middle. So
we have now.
Thank you. Charles Hughes, eManagement. Paul, you are in a job which strikes me as being extraordinarily powerful. You have got information and data about so many people, often in great depth. You could link it with the CCTV footage from the stores. You clearly have financial information about people, and you have a duty of care for all that information. You also have, with the technology and excellent IT team at your disposal, a lot of oomph if you were choosing to implement a whole range of interesting applications to understand people's lives somewhat better. You talk correctly about technical standards. I wonder whether in the context of what we have and what's developing, whether you have a series of ethical standards as well. If so, how do you develop them and how do you promulgate them to the team?
Question. A really important question. I think we as custodians of people's personal data and information have to be exceptionally careful about it. As my colleague Pauline there, who when we were working together was in charge of IT security at British Airways, can confirm, you absolutely do have to have the highest standards. And that's not about, everything points you in the same way. You're absolutely right. As a customer of, John Lewis and British Airways, and indeed many other things, I expect, my personal data to be absolutely protected and safeguarded. Commercially, if things go wrong, you lose trust. And actually the most important thing, and I think this is absolutely, United wrote my guitar, the most important thing in terms of customer relationships at the moment is people trust you. They do trust you in an airline, to fly, and they trust you to be treated ethically, and that the prices you get from John Lewis are fair and are never knowingly undersold. So that's key. And if those two incentives weren't enough, they're then ferocious laws that actually bear down directly on the Chief Information Officer in a very personal way, and indeed other senior executives that require you to do that. Absolutely, and Kevin, who is of much longer standing than me in John Lewis partnership, can answer this much better than me. But the whole ethos of John Lewis is actually founded on respect for the partners who work there, and indeed the customers that we serve, and that is a key element. I know that the nature of the company we have is that people try and take that very, very seriously. So you're right, we are custodians of an awful lot. I can assure you that the degrees of integration that you outlined at the start of your question are certainly not available to me as we speak at the moment.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious that we're way over schedule, and it's an absolute testament to Paul that the place is still packed. However, just two more questions, if I may. Where are we? Ah, yes, lady here. Thank you. Avi, could you whiz that around? Thank you. Just a little bit further on. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'm quite grateful to be asking the question before I drunk the entire glass of wine. I was getting a little worried then. My question is this. There are a few companies who are not completely reliant on technology, and yet it's very rare to find a CIO on the main board of a company, and frequently they don't even report directly to the main board. They actually report through the CFO. And that's still something that's happening nowadays, and I find that in so many of the companies that I consult at. And I was just wondering why you think that is, and what a CIO can actually do in a company to ensure they're not just seen as a necessary evil and someone who just comes and brings them bad news.
Well, the short answer is buy 50 things I wish I did. In terms of why, I don't think we should angst too much necessarily about reporting position, and it is something that if you did a search on it, you would find a lot of column inches around. It does depend on each company. I think the core thing is to not to worry so much about the reporting line, but to understand the role. And I think I could try and think of examples of where people have transformed the company from positions which were not necessarily on the main board. Actually, I've got one. I was desperately trying to think of one while I was saying that. But Charlie Mayfield, who, as you know, is the chairman of John Lewis Partnership, I think joined late 90s, and he was business development manager. And he had the vision to see that actually buying a website, buy.com, which he bought the complete license for, had the potential to transform the company. And he did it, not as CIO, not even, there. So, and, look where he is now, So I think it's the role you play. So I'd really absolutely urge, and, I had a bigger role in British Airways for the last 2 years in a different reporting position. So it doesn't necessarily correlate. Clearly it helps, but it's not the only thing. And I think it's really important that people don't get too fussed by the org chart, but they do get fussed by, am I on the agenda, the strategy agenda, and are people listening, and how can I get people to listen? And I think that's more important. And, I think you can do great things from all sorts of places.
Thank you, Paul. And for our last question, gentleman at the back, just here on your right, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick John, Prudential. Firstly, thank you for a great presentation, very insightful. We share a lot of common ground, probably 99%. However, we differ potentially on the cloud, being one for the future. The recent Amazon incident has made me reevaluate that strategy conceptually. What's your view?
I disagree, I think, which is not to say don't go and stick your customer data in a very open site, somewhere you don't know where it is around the world. See the point about protecting customer data. I think most people know in IT that the airline industry created global distribution systems. Sabre, Amadeus, Galileo, WorldSpan. They still all exist. Alas, the airlines flogged them for money. But they were effectively, in my view, meet a definition of the cloud, i.e. they're hosted at a remote location. So Munich or Tulsa or Atlanta, you pay for usage. So you pay whatever it is, 95, it isn't actually the price, but 95 cents per passenger boarded for the reservation and check-in. That, to my mind, is a cloud before the internet was invented. So I don't think there's that new about the cloud. But the point about those was they were originally owned by the airlines, so we felt secure about where they were. We were collectively, because they were provided for 100 plus airlines now, able to enforce security standards and to test them and to make sure that they were appropriate. We were able to, we had confidence in using them. Absolutely, I'm not saying we should all go and stick everything on the cloud. No way should we ever do that. I think I'd suggest that people thought about whether they can build private clouds or industry clouds. I think there's some merit there, like the airlines. I think there's also merit in thinking about testing systems. If you buy enough kit to actually run your online releases on a whole load of servers that you've got in-house, that's going to cost you a load of money. If you can hire that by the hour and use that as test data, and you don't put anything that you don't want out there, that's a smart use of the cloud, in my view. So if you took it as cloud now, everything, no way. You've got to be smart about it. You've got to be careful. You've got to be secure. So I hope we're not too far apart.
Thank you very much. And I have one thing that I'd like to do just before we all disappear. And this is a very small, I found as I've received it, Roman coins are very small. This is a Roman coin that I'd like to present to you. And it is, in fact, just before you go, it is Trajan.
Yes,
is that correct?
Trajan. Yes.
Trajan.
My favourite emperor.
Oh, wonderful.
Good.
And as you know, he was sole ruler of the Roman Empire at the age of 45, so no mean achievement. However, he wasn't your average Roman Empire. He was benevolent, sincere, indulgent, generous, patient, yet just, firm and decisive. Thank you, Paul Coby.
Okay,